How's it going, everybody? I'd like to welcome everybody back, and sorry for being away for so long. It's been a little busy lately. So I wanted to talk to everybody about something that is often asked to me as a full-time instructor and as just an engineer in the field. So for those of you that are studying for a certification or studying for a new technology, or you're trying to build the skills that you have, there are times where I'm diving into voice over IP. That is a speaker to a 9971 sitting on my desk, or if I'm trying to figure out why I can't get certificate-based FlexVPN to work. They're all skill building, right? And they all need to be started off somewhere, whether that's at the CCNA level, or if you're studying for a CCIE, or you're not studying for any certification and you just need to learn it to be able to do your job. So I wanted to decouple the studying from the certification, because not everybody cares about certification. I know a lot of engineers that I've had the pleasure of working with that could give two craps about a certification, CCNA, MCSE, or otherwise. They just needed to be able to learn the technology to do their job. And that's really what I've always been geared towards, is learning technology to do my job. So let's focus on some things real quick that we need to understand in order to go forward with how we go forward with learning. I mean, really, that's what we're here for, right? Step one is we definitely need to understand what it is we're learning, right? Now, this could be anything from, at least in most recent, for me, has been a little bit of collaboration, has been a little bit of security, and stuff like that. So I've been focusing on some of the aspects of collaboration, like installing Call Manager and learning how to register IP phones inside of Call Manager and get them to register so that I can call and stuff like that. It was more or less a nice to have than anything else, but guess what? Those are skills that I now have that I can take into the field with me to do when I'm working on a project. Now, I plan on taking those skills above and beyond, probably spend a little bit of time diving into CCNA collaboration. I like it's the fact that it's geared towards a direction I might want to dive into. But I've also been spending a fair amount of time on the security track as well. So in terms of diving into things like the web security appliance, or diving into identity management with ICE or ACS. So even though they are geared towards a goal that I have of earning my second CCIE in security, they're skills that need to be learned. So how do you approach it if you're, for instance, when I got route switch knocked out and then I switched gears over to service provider, what did I do? That's a common question that I get. Well, the first thing that I did is I made a right-hand turn and I went after CCNA service provider. I didn't take the certification exams, but what I did do is I went through the training material. So I went through and I looked at the blueprint and I go, okay, what are all the topics that I need to cover? A lot of the topics I didn't need to waste any time on because I already knew them. There's no point of me reviewing OSPF or BGP because I already know them, especially probably beyond what the CCNA service provider exams are going to task me with understanding. So it really wasn't worth my effort or to spend the money on the certification to take it. But I have the skills to back it up. So what I did was I spent a few weeks going through material, looking at the different blueprint items and figuring out what it was that I needed to know. I did that, and I felt pretty comfortable that if I was to sit for a practice exam, I'd be okay. So I found some practice exams for CCNA service provider, and I did fairly well. I passed. I usually will take 10 exams, and if I can pass 7 or more without having to okay, I don't know this, the answer to this, I move on. I don't waste my time taking the exam. It's not worth my effort. It's not worth the money either. So what do you do once you have established that you can pass the CCNA? Well, then you move on to CCNP. That's exactly what I did. Well, at the time, the training company that I was working for basically was like, well, we can't release the content unless you have the certification. So there is a driver to actually get certified. And that's one of the things, too, when it comes to studying. Does it make sense for you to get certified, or does it not make sense for you to get certified? I work for a training company that is willing to pay for any of my IT certification tests that I take. Now, that's a big plus in my book, because now I can sit and go, okay, well, if I want to get CCNP security certified, I can go and take the exams, and my employer is going to reimburse me. So that's basically how I approach that. Now I take that to the next level and I start going through the material. Now I've gone through CCNP security, pretty much the entire blueprint for all 4 exams, and I'd say I'm pretty good in most areas. But do I think I could go to my local Pearson VUE testing center and actually pass? Probably not without some serious review. But that's okay though, because that's being honest with myself and being okay. Am I ready for a cert test? Not really. Do I need to go? Do I know a lot about the topics? Yeah. Am I ready for a cert exam? No, which means I have more studying and more preparation to do. You have to be honest with yourself when it goes about doing that. But that's one of those things when you're diving into the topics, you need to start somewhere. So whether it's you go read some documentation, what I refer to as marketecture, you go and you look at the marketing details of a particular technology or what have you. You know, if you don't know what SD-WAN is, go read up on SD-WAN. And don't read just one document. Read as many as you can, because then you're going to get different perspectives on the technology itself. You're going to go out and you're going to get the author's viewpoints. You know, some are good, some are bad, some are kind of neutral on the technology. And there might be some overlap in some other areas. I remember when I was learning the difference between NSX and ACI, and another engineer and myself, we ended up kind of butting heads in a disagreement where ACI is better than NSX and NSX is better than ACI. I quickly learned that that's actually not true at all. And what it came down to was he was working for Cisco, so he had to push ACI. I wasn't working for either vendor, so I could be like, well, they're both good, and here's why. And so after a little bit of a discussion back and forth, he came to the conclusion, okay, it's like I wasn't trying to one-up him. It just became just a matter of opinion. So, but it was one of those things where I had to step off and go, okay, what is NSX? What is ACI? And then dive into those technologies. Dive into it a little bit further. Now, some of those technologies I've labbed up, and that's actually the next bullet point that I want to bring up, is lab up the technologies that you're trying to learn. And what that's going to help you do is it's going to help you reinforce the material you just read about or watched a video on. Now, I'm a big proponent of read and watch in TV mode. Now, what does that mean, TV mode? That means that you are just going to sit and watch, like you're watching right now. You might even be just listening. You might have a different tab in your web browser open, but I'm still in the background playing with the audio. Well, that's cool with me. I don't care. What it matters is you're getting something out of it. Whether it's background noise or what have you, you're still hearing me. And that's the point. So you hear the material, maybe you're Googling something because it's like, oh, what is that? Well, what does that mean? Oh, what does that mean? So you're able to go through and figure out what the person's talking about. So I'm a big proponent of, if I learn a technology, I'm going to go and I'm going to listen to all of the material, because I prefer video training personally over reading a book. I'd rather listen to an engineer talk, because there's going to be things that the engineer is going to have experience on that the book or the written documentation may not cover or may not cover right away, and it might be a hurdling point to go, oh, okay, that's what I saw when I was doing that. You know, sometimes they glue things together for you and you don't even realize it. So I do that. So it's reinforce what you've learned by labbing it up. So I'm a big proponent of the lab every day movement that another YouTuber has come out with, and big fan of his work because of the fact that I believe in it. If you can lab it up, that is a skill now that you have that's applicable. Now you can perform that skill. Now you can put that on your resume. You've done this, this, and this. That's another question I get a lot of the time. I haven't been in the IT industry very long at all, maybe a year or two. Now, this is the person talking to me, obviously. I've been in the IT industry a lot longer than that. But the person students ask, I should say, a lot, hey, I've only been in the IT industry 6 months, or maybe I just started. How do I prove to a organization that I have the skills necessary to do the job? Well, that's actually a really easy answer, because now you can take what it is that you've learned, and you can, as long as you can show and illustrate that you know the technologies. Like, for instance, let's say you go and you get OSPF Area 0 up and running on a pair of Cisco routers, and then you start advertising routes, and you see OSPF routes showing up in the routing table. Well, guess what? That's a definable skill on your resume, because now you've configured it. 2, you know how to verify it. So you may have only Googled how to get it up and running, but you know what? That's a step. That's one step in the right direction. Now, if you could answer questions like which multicast addresses does OSPF use to form neighbor adjacencies with, and other things like that, what are the 4 or 5 things that it needs to be the same on both routers in order for the adjacency to form. Those are going to be more the factual information. But if you can get it up and running, that's a definable skill. And that's really what you're going for, is you're looking to be able to show you can do the job and be able to verify it and be able to back it up. Now, you may not be able to, you may have only gone that far, but that's still a skill. It's a checkbox you can mark off. And then you can move into the next step. Okay, now you've got OSPF. Whenever I talk about learning something for the first time, I always talk about it from the perspective of you need to start somewhere. Take the first step into something, whatever that might be. You know, whether it's Palo Alto, VMware, what have you. I really don't care. Pick something, go down that street. Now, as you're walking down this certification path or this technology path or whatever it is, as you're learning things, note down what you've learned. You know, you learned this about ICE, you learned this about ACS, you learned this about FlexVPN, you learned how to register a phone and call manager. Now, I haven't noted that I've done that, or that I had to buy Cisco IP phones off of eBay, that I had to go in and I had to do a factory reset on the phones because they came out of a production environment. 99% sure they came from Cisco.com. Cisco itself, like out of San Jose. That's where the phones were shipped from. But I was like, why is this not registering with call managers? So then there's some troubleshooting that came into play. It's like, oh, factory reset the phone. Okay, factory reset the phone. A couple minutes later, I'm looking at call manager. Boom, they were registered. I was like, yes. Now I can call from my office down to my kitchen and be on video. That's cool. That's one of the reasons why I got it. I was like, hey, it'd be nice to be able to video chat downstairs. So that's one definable thing that I can do. Now, could you ask me more about, you know, the difference between partitions and calling search spaces? Don't have a clue what they do. Other than the fact that I had to watch a video to get something to work in order to get something else to work. Beyond that, I don't know. But it's one of the reasons why I haven't noted it down, that I can go through and set up call manager and stuff like that, because I really can't. And that's another thing, you have to be honest with yourself. Now, let's say you've learned a technology and you've gone beyond that point of, okay, you know how to get a network up and running. Great, nice job. So now the next thing for you to do is learn the subtopics. What are all, if you were to go underneath router OSPF, or if you're learning ICE, what's the next topic in line? Are you learning about profiling, posture assessment, 802.1x? Are you trying to use ICE to authenticate a VPN user through Active Directory? These are all things that you can do, and these are subtopics you can expound upon. So every subtopic, it might be another topic or another feature. So as you're learning a feature, learn all the sub-features. What are all the different things you can do with it? Then if you move on to the next feature or the next topic, learn all the subtopics for it. Now, as you're going through, watch a video about it, and that's the point. Now, what you're doing is you're expounding upon what you learned originally, and then taking that into more detail. Now, you've gone through that process and everything's good. Now you've gone through, you know, every little detail there is to know about multi-area OSPF. That there's a lot to know, but you claim you know. Awesome. I feel like I know a lot about multi-area OSPF as well. Then you go and you have to be able to lab that up. If you can lab that up, that's a great next step, because then it's showing that you have a definable skill, you can execute on it and all that type of stuff. That's a really good thing to be able to fall back on. Now, how do you know you've really gone the distance? That's one of the other questions I get. And I go, okay, that's actually a really good question. Last, but certainly not least, this is actually the main thing that I think is the most important. Can you answer for every feature and sub-feature, and maybe sub-feature of that sub-feature? So now we're going 3 levels deep. Do you know the who, what, when, where, why, and how? If you can answer those 6 things for every technology and every technology sub-feature that you've ever tested on, you now have the skills and understanding that employers are looking for. Because now you might be an expert in ICE, you might be an expert in call manager. Great. That's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what you need to be doing for your job. Now you can take those skills and you can apply them. And you can actually say, yes, I can add a speed dial on my phone, or I can set up a voicemail, or I can go into ICE and I can make sure that, you know, this specific user comes in and the phone has MAC authentication bypass, or MAB, but the PC still has to use a certificate to authenticate to the network. These are all skills that come into play that might be beneficial to you. So that is what I want to talk about in this video. That is all for me. Until next time, guys, take it easy.